Hey everyone, this is Mason, and you're listening to Herb Rally. In this episode, I'm joined by Tania Byrne for another edition of the Herbalist Hour. So, Tania is a traditional Western herbalist based in Portland, Oregon. So, it was great to sit down with her for about an hour, get to know more about her and her herbalism background. In this conversation, we chat about how she got into herbalism, who some of her mentors have been, advice for the aspiring clinical herbalist, whether or not she enjoys having an herbal product line, her new booklet, and a whole lot more. If you'd like to learn more about Tania and her work, simply go to epicherbalism.com. Also, before we get into the show, I want to tell you about the United Plant Savers March membership drive. So for the rest of the month of March, there's still about 9 or 10 days left, but depending on when you're listening to this, you could save $5 on all membership levels. So if you want to get the individual recurring membership, that's $35 per year. And if you use coupon code March 2024, you save $5, so it's only $30 annually. And something that's really cool is when you become a member, you automatically get a $75 gift card to use towards classes in the International Herb Symposium's Learning Center. So yeah, it's like you spend $30 to be a member, support this awesome nonprofit organization, the United Plant Savers, and in return, you automatically get a $75 gift card to use towards herbal education. And there's lots of other membership benefits that go along with becoming a UPS member. I'll just read a few here. You get discounts on herbal products from popular retails. You get discounts on herbal classes. You get a printed copy of the next Journal of Medicinal Plant Conservation, which is really cool. And all past journal issues are available for everyone to download. So that's a really amazing perk as well. I won't read everything here. I will leave a link to join UPS at the tippy top of today's podcast show notes. And once again, don't forget to use coupon code March 2024 at checkout to save $5 on any membership level with the United Plant Savers. So help them get to 10,000 members this year by participating in the March membership drive. Also, I want to say a huge thanks to our presenting sponsors for this episode, and that is our Herb Rally Schoolhouse members. So big thank you, shout out. Really appreciate all of the support from all of our Herb Rally Schoolhouse members. We really could not do this without you. If you'd like to learn more about what the Herb Rally Schoolhouse is, it's simply our membership area. You could head to herbrally.com/schoolhouse. And if you want to try your first 30 days for free, you could use coupon code podcast at checkout. Then it's only $10 a month. We really try to keep it as affordable as possible. So thank you once again to all of our current Herb Rally Schoolhouse members. That's going to do it for me this time around. Hope you enjoyed today's episode with Tania, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. Bye.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm really excited to have on Tania Byrne. Welcome to the show, Tania.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers. I got my coffee tea. What are you drinking today?
I was going to ask, right now I've got a chamomile vanilla with honey.
Lovely. Now, is that a Mossy tonic tea or is that some other brand?
Ooh, I didn't have time, so it's just a nice little tea bag from Bigelow.
Ain't no shame in your game. I like a good tea bag as well. Yeah, nope.
Got so much loose leaf, but
yeah,
in a pinch.
Exactly. Yeah, come through in the clutch with the tea bags for sure. Well, let's kick things off and get to know you a little bit more. How did you get into herbalism?
Yeah, so that was at this point over a decade ago. I believe I was maybe 19, and I was living in this little apartment in Portland, which afterwards I realized had a problem with black mold. Unfortunately, that's kind of common.
Yeah.
And previously I'd never had any issues with allergies and asthma, and then I ended up having bronchitis a couple times and then getting diagnosed with asthma. And then over the next couple years, the standard doctors told me, well, you just have this condition, you have to take medication for the rest of your life. And I just felt like, I don't know if I like that. Let's see if there's something else we could do. And then I started dipping my toes into holistic medicine. I saw I saw like an acupuncturist and a naturopath, and I started to read some books. I changed my diet, and I started feeling better than I had before all my issues. And that really inspired me to continue forward. And then because I like the idea of being able to kind of communicate with the plants in my own area, I've been drawn to more of a Western herbalism, because it's more of a, kind of like Northern American plus European, which there's a lot of similar species. So yeah, I started getting into Western herbalism, and for the first few years, I was self-taught, reading a lot of books and experimenting in my area. And then I did take a course, I believe the 2 years at what was the Vitalist School. It was originally the School of Traditional Western Herbalism, and then I went to the Vitalist School. And then unfortunately, it's not open anymore due to a tragedy that had happened there. But I enjoyed that. And then I've worked at some apothecaries. And at this point, I feel like I've done a lot, done medicine making, consultations. It's just a lifelong pursuit for me.
Absolutely. And rest in peace, Christopher Smaka. What an amazing teacher. So you had the opportunity to study with him. I only ever got to interact with him at, the Portland Plant Medicine Gathering and various herb conferences and stuff like that. But he seemed like an incredible teacher. So you would attribute most of your apprenticeship and herbal learning to him?
Definitely some of it. There was definitely some one-on-one time with him. He was extremely passionate. And yeah, he's definitely going to be missed by the community. He was very, very passionate, very energetic with it. Very inspiring with what he was doing with it and the community that he built in that area of Portland.
Absolutely. Are you a lifelong Portlander?
Portland area. So I've kind of lived like, Beaverton, Tigard, all around. But yeah, lifelong in the kind of Pacific Northwest.
Cool. So you're an Nepo now. Is that what the kids call it? Nepo?
I don't know what the kids are calling things, but Nepo, I haven't heard that.
Oh,
now,
really?
Side, southeast.
Oh, southeast.
Actually, yeah.
Sipo.
See, I mean, if that's what they're calling it.
I don't know.
Sure. But
I'm just making shit up as I go along.
Yeah, and I know you've been here, but you're from the Northeast, or you kind of go back and forth?
Yeah, so I'm from Oregon. I'm from Eugene, Oregon, and I went to the Columbine School of Botanical Studies, but I actually did study in Portland for a year. I went to the Arctos School of Herbal and Botanical Medicine with Missy Rose and Grady Proctor. Yeah, I really wish I had an opportunity to go to the Vitalist School, but never got around to it. So. But yeah, Oregon is my home. I'm really excited to talk to you more about some Pacific Northwest plants later on. But before we kind of get into that, I'm curious what your clinical practice looks like, because I know you have online education. You have a brand called Mossy Tonic. I brought that up already. But yeah, I know a lot of times as herbalists, we have to like make our living in lots of different ways, but I'd like to talk to you more about your clinical practice. Based on reading your website, epicherbalism.com, it sounds like you've been in practice for 6 years. Is that currently up to date?
So I would say my personal clinical practice is more like 2 or 3 years at this point. I had been doing somewhat of a clinical situation in an apothecary in Portland. But that is definitely one of the most passionate parts I have in herbalism. One of the areas that I find the most fulfillment in, just like helping people one-on-one. And when they give me feedback that I help them, it's just like, it just melts my heart.
Totally.
So I don't have that many clients because again, I got my toes dipped in, I don't know how you say it, fingers in a lot of jars.
Sure.
And then also I would like to do more seasonal herb walks in the area. Unfortunately, I've been a little extra busy this last year and probably this year as well. So, that's kind of on the back burner. But yes, my clinical practice, very small, but I am accepting new clients at the moment. But yeah, that definitely is one of the most fulfilling aspects of the entire herbalism area for me.
So when someone comes to see you, I suspect, are these in person, online, or both? And kind of how do you structure that, and how does your pricing work and all that?
The pricing's hard because I do want to be accessible.
Right.
So I've gone back and forth, and I'm trying to figure that out if it's a sliding scale or what. Because I do, research before I talk to them, and then I do a lot of time after talking to them, give them a full write-up. So the price, I don't want to say a price because it's been varied.
Yeah.
It's usually a little bit over an hour for an initial consultation, and then follow-up consultations are usually like 45 minutes, and they'll be less expensive. I've ranged it anywhere from like $40 to $60
Hmm.
um, ish. That is definitely a hard thing to do when, because I want to be able to help people who may not have additional income.
Sure.
Um, but let's see, you said what was the first question you
Yeah,
asked?
online, in person.
Oh, yes. So right now we're doing a lot of online. I think it kind of got normalized in the last couple of years, and it's just a little more convenient for people.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of doing one-on-one in maybe a natural setting,
Mm.
like an outdoor park or something in the future. But yeah, so far right now it's mostly online.
So when you get a client, are they coming back to you, like, say, every 6 months, every month, or how does that work?
It kind of depends. One of the
Yeah.
people that I feel like I've had the most success with, she's coming back to me, I think every like 6 months, and she always
Okay.
says that she wished she was remembering to do it earlier. And yeah, I've been seeing her for about 2 years now, and it's just, yeah, every time I see her, she's doing better and better, and it
Awesome.
just, yeah, it feels great.
That's got to feel really good. I'm kind of curious. So going back 6 years when you first started seeing clients, do you recall, like, when you say you got your first client and what that felt like? Were there any nerves about it, or can you
Oh,
kind of take us
definitely.
back? Yeah. Well,
So when you're
can you
working,
kind of take us back and tell us the story of your first client?
yes, I was lucky enough to work in this really nice apothecary in Portland, and people would come to me asking me, various questions, and of course I had to be, and I still have to be very, you know, um, very honest. This is not medical advice, I have to be careful.
Hmm.
And there is a lot of responsibility in, telling someone that maybe they should take this new herb that might
Sure.
have interesting effects on them. So yeah, in the beginning, I was definitely a little bit, it was a little stressful, and I wanted to be really cautious. And then the first few people that came back to me, sometimes it was a month later or several months later, and they say, "Hey, you told me about this one herb, and I started taking it. My issues improved so much." And yeah, that it always just felt amazing and made me want to continue on. So yeah, that was many years ago, and I kind of dabbled in that kind of informal, just anybody walked in and asked me questions, and I would try to kind of work with them in that way.
I read on your website that you call herbalism like a labor of love. If I'm remembering that correctly, I'm just kind of curious, and you're constantly learning. Do you think herbalism is going to be potentially like a lifelong career for you?
I think it's definitely going to be a lifelong pursuit for me. I
Yeah.
don't know if necessarily it's always going to be a career. It's
Yeah.
kind of hard when you meld a hobby with a career.
Right.
So, for example, I do have a product line. I'm very proud of all my formulas, but at some degree, I'm doing a ton of hours just doing production, doing labels, all these things. And I'm very grateful to be able to do that. But yeah, sometimes I wonder, maybe if I had, a more traditional career and I was able just to do my herbalism in my own time. So I've definitely had to find that balance. So if I didn't have it as a career, I'd probably be out more, like communicating with the herbs more. So it's definitely a balance. But I do think for me personally, it's going to be a lifelong pursuit of, because I just love getting out into nature. I've always, even before I knew anything about herbalism as a kid, just going around looking at plants, smelling flowers. um, I think the in the last few years, I've gotten a little more interested in like survival skills.
Hmm.
So now I'm kind of looking at herbs to think, well, how can can I eat you? Are you medicine?
Right.
Are you going to be helpful if the stuff hits a fan? So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. I definitely want you on my zombie apocalypse team then, if that's kind of we're
I've
preparing for
been
that.
a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
You got your bug out bag?
Shamefully, no, I don't. I know, and I'm in a totally new environment, probably be incredibly helpful. I'm in Wisconsin now, where, I don't really know the lay of the land that well, so I really need to start gearing up and learning more about that. So yes, you've inspired me. All right, I need to get my bug out bag going.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what's going on over there, but here, we have to worry about a potential earthquake. And so up there,
Hmm.
I don't know, besides more global situations, you might be okay,
Yeah.
depending on the
Yeah.
situation.
Amanda is saying this is a very odd winter here in Wisconsin because it's like all the snow is already melted. I don't know if we're going to get hit with another snowstorm. Who knows? But yeah, it's quite strange to see. I was expecting on that first snow it was going to just be like snow on the ground for 4 or 5 months, but it's already gone. And I was walking around in just this shirt earlier today and it wasn't that cold. So I was like, where are the rumors about this cold Wisconsin climate? It's really not
It's
that
a
bad.
weird year because even we
Yeah.
got really hard freeze that was unusual. And I heard
Yeah.
that it even went down into Texas,
Yeah.
maybe more of a freeze, than some northern.
Strange times. It's all the more reason for me to get a bug out bag. But going back to your clinical stuff, how are folks finding out about you? You do a really good job like marketing yourself. You're on Instagram and Facebook. You have a beautiful website. Are people finding you organically online or is it like word of mouth?
I think it's both, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Well, how about we get to some advice? Do you have any advice for like, say, the person not just getting into herbalism and hoping to become a clinician someday? Do you have any advice for the beginning herbalist?
Yes, I would say first, I like the idea of having some type of system or paradigm to work with. So I personally have the traditional Western herbalism. Some people have Ayurveda. Some people have traditional Western herbalism. You don't have to go into one of these, but I think it's helpful to have some type of system, because before I realized that there was a system, it felt a lot like memorizing, countless herbs,
Right.
memorizing what they all do,
Yeah.
versus once you have some type of system,
Mm.
becomes more of a puzzle to work with. So you don't need one herb. You can have, you have many herbs that have similar uses. So I would say first is maybe explore what type of system that you are interested in. And then I like the idea of reading books and kind of going out in nature and having a little bit of a personal experience to kind of decide what you want to do.
Mm.
And to some degree, herbalism in the United States is a little bit of the Wild West, which I think has its pros and its cons. So the pros are that there's so many niches that are not filled yet. So
Mm.
it's a really good opportunity for people to find exactly what they're interested in and go for it. Some people do women's health, some people, do bioregionalism. So there's really a lot of areas to kind of figure out how you personally relate and like what you care about. So I think that's really great. And there's not a ton of official structure. So that can be good and bad. So some people like the structure, and then maybe they could go more towards the, look into the American Herbalist Guild.
Mhm.
Um, and then I think the pro with the structure is, everyone can agree on ideas, which I think can be useful. But then I think when new ideas come up and old ideas maybe are not as useful, it takes a little bit of time for people to adjust. Yeah, so I would say, I guess, first start out, see where you are interested in, and just take some time to see what's calling to you.
You mentioned going out into nature. Are you saying go out to nature with the intent of just like having a sit down and just soul searching and just trying to figure out what it is, what direction you want to head in?
Yes. And then again, everyone's super different. Some people who are really sensitive and maybe more spiritual, they might go into the avenue of plant spirit medicine.
Hmm.
They might not ever harvest herbs. They might sit with an herb and meditate with it and get some type of information from the herb directly and help people work with herbs in that way. Other people who have a little bit more of maybe a scientific background, they might take an herb, a leaf, and bring it back home and look at it under a microscope and then research the constituents. So yeah, but I personally think it's really not just useful, but just wholesome
Sure.
and to actually go out into nature and communicate with the plants in some way. Also, I think it's more sustainable because, I don't like to have herbs shipped from halfway across the world. I'm not saying that those herbs aren't useful, but I think we have some more local herbs that are going to be more sustainable to be using. So I like the idea of people keeping in mind their local bioregion.
Absolutely. And hey, we got a guest question from Diana, an Herb Rally Schoolhouse member. So thanks for joining us, Diana. And Diana asks, "Hi, Mason and Tanya. Question: Over the years of helping clients, is there anything you used? Is there anything you used to recommend that you're no longer a fan of, or that you recommend in a different way than you did?"
Hmm. That's a really interesting question. I guess I used to, in the beginning, I was a little bit more adamant about you have to take, or you don't have to, but like I suggest you take this herb and this herb and this herb and take them in these quantities.
Mm.
And then over the years, I've kind of personally come to a place where I think that lifestyle and like the emotional state of the person is a little bit more important than I had realized before. So I guess in the beginning I was suggesting probably more herb use, and now I'm suggesting a little bit more, asking them like, how are your relationships and are you sleeping enough? So yeah, I would say just a little bit overemphasis of taking herbs in the beginning, and now a little bit more of an emphasis on what else is going on in your life that's aggravating these physical symptoms.
That's a great answer. Do you think that just kind of comes with the territory of being a new herbalist, and then over time seeing that it really is a lot more about lifestyle than just like prescribing herbs and stuff like that?
I do,
Yeah.
and it's hard because, the easy way to market anything, including herbalism, is take this. This is going
Right.
to solve your problems. Take this. And it's a lot harder and more nuanced to instead, ask the person, like, really think about what's going into your life that's not physical, that's affecting you. And then they have to take more personal responsibility. So it's definitely more of an elaborate situation.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, let's talk about other ways you make a living as an herbalist. Can you tell us more about what Mossy Tonic is and what you have to offer there?
Yes. So I created Mossy Tonic at this point, I think 7 years ago or so. And it is an herbal product brand that it's not 100%, but it's mostly bioregional. I'm using herbs kind of in my area, and at very least United States grown, organic. And I'm making formulas kind of, I did a lot of different types. So I've got a loose leaf tea line, I've got a skincare line, and a lot of it actually is I made for myself originally and me and my friends, and then people would ask for more. And so some of the products, like a lot of the skincare, I just started making more because people were really interested in it. So we've got teas, skincare, tinctures, and also smoking blends. People find a
Really?
lot of, yeah, people are looking for alternatives to tobacco. And so the herbal smoking blends have been pretty popular. And what else?
Do you smoke those?
Honestly, I don't smoke very much, but you can use them as incense as well.
Oh, good
But
idea.
people like to smoke herbs. It just seems like, I don't know, it's kind of it's a thing a lot of humans have always wanted to do. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have an option that's, tobacco free, organic, and as wholesome as it can be.
So you mentioned sourcing a lot of the herbs yourself. Have you purchased any herbs from Oshala Farm yet?
I think I might have in the past.
Yeah.
They're definitely not a main farm that I work with,
Yeah.
but where
I
are
just
they located?
got, oh, they're in Southern Oregon, so they're just down the road from
Really?
you. Yeah, they're in the Applegate Valley, Williams, Oregon. So I just got to shout them out because they're presenting sponsor for the Herbalist Hour. But amazing herbs, and yeah, you'd love Elise and Jeff Higley, the owners of the farm. You should definitely make a road trip and visit the farm at some point.
I think I will because even when you look at the herbs, the more locally ones, you could just tell they're just more vibrant. I feel like you could probably use less of them. They
Yeah.
just looking at them, they look better. So I'm definitely going to check them out.
Absolutely. And they have a I want to say it's an herb camp coming up this summer where it's basically like an herb conference, but it's basically a bunch of herbalists hanging out, teaching and whatnot. And you also get to check out the farm when it's in full bloom and everything. So that would be definitely something to look into as well. Herb camp at Oshala Farm. But talking more about Mossy Tonic, who made that logo? Was that you?
So I came up with the name, and then I had a local artist that I believe they go by the Far Woods. Anyways, I had her, or two of them. Anyways, I had the Far Woods make up the fox face, and I
I
just
love
told her,
that.
yeah, I just said, something Pacific Northwest-esque,
Yeah.
and I let her have kind of creative license, and that's what they did. And I love it so much that I don't really ever want to change it, so I'm pretty happy with it. But then, yeah, I just came up with the name Mossy Tonic, trying to, it's so mossy here in the Pacific Northwest. Tonic is kind of like remedies, so that's where
It's
that's where it
it's a
started.
dope name. You're really good at naming things. You got
Thank
Epic
you.
Herbalism. That's a fantastic name. And I'm like, shit, why didn't I think of that? And Mossy Tonic, like you said, I do miss the Pacific Northwest because you could fall anywhere in the woods and just land on a pillow essentially. So
I do feel really lucky. I didn't notice how great it was until I had traveled a little bit elsewhere, and
yeah,
you come back and you realize, wow, I'm just surrounded by mountains and trees,
yeah.
uh, rivers. It's gorgeous.
It's heaven on earth for sure. So Amanda and I are actually thinking about starting a product lineup for ourselves, but it's not necessarily about making a living from it. It's more just to scratch that itch, like this, because we're having all these fun ideas for a name and labels and like the different products we want to make. So sure, maybe it will help fund our lifestyle to some degree or another, but more than anything, we feel like it's going to scratch this creative itch that we have. So I'm just wondering if you think that's a good idea. I know it's also a lot of work, but if you could just kind of, coach me on that.
I would say, I would say that you guys are probably already making remedies and making
Uh-huh.
things for friends and families. So in that
Totally.
way, doing it would just kind of help that be cohesive and almost pay for itself to some degree.
Totally.
Um, I will say, yeah, you spend a ton of time doing production, and I'm kind of a one-woman show with my business. I do it everything, and I'm confident in my herbalism, the back end, the business, the numbers, the inventory. I'm not super interested in,
Right.
and that business aspect. There is a lot of it's kind of expensive to get the commercial kitchen situation and all the licenses. So all the not fun stuff is a lot, but if you're good, with the business aspect or you have support with that, I'd say go for it. Yeah, but you're definitely gonna be mixing herbs a lot. And
Right.
sometimes, I'm like wearing a bandana and like covering my whole face because just herb dust gets everywhere. It's fun though. You can, talk or listen to a podcast, but just, yeah, hours and hours of production. If you're okay with that and you're good with the business back end, go for it.
Are you using a commercial kitchen or are you doing this at home?
No, I'm using commercial kitchen
Oh,
in Portland.
wow.
Yeah, it's actually
What's
pretty. So there's or at least in Oregon, but I think in the United States in general, it's actually pretty a tight, what do you call it? There's a lot of rules that you gotta
yeah,
be aware
totally.
of. So yeah,
Okay, so you're doing it the right way.
yeah, but it definitely takes, yeah, there's a lot of business stuff that
Sure.
personally I don't think it's the most fun, but hey, it's just part of it. But yeah, I do love having the finished product that is that's helping people, and I do also think it's fun to like make the designs for all the labels and things like that. So if
Abs-
you want some help thinking of names, let me know,
All
because
right, we'll do.
I think it's kind of fun to invent the names and the labels and the
Well,
graphics.
we have a brand name in our head already, so but I'm not gonna announce it here
That's
yet, but I'll keep you posted on that for sure. But yeah, just exciting. I figure out how to ask because I know there's a lot more work that goes into it than just a pretty label. So awesome. Well, let's transition a little bit and talk about another part of your business. You have a book coming out. It's called Gather: Wild Recipes for Health and Home. So can you tell us about the book?
Yes. So the last few years, potentially because of global, situations, I've had a little bit more interest in survival situations and just being prepared, being self-sustaining, just in case, things happen. Again, in the Pacific Northwest, we might have a mega thrust earthquake. And not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but if
Right.
that happens, we might have to be on our own for a couple weeks. So I think
Yeah.
it's just useful to learn as much as you can in that department. And then also, I've been trying to incorporate more wild food into my diet.
Mhm.
You probably know this, but when you go and harvest food from the wild, it tends to be a lot more nutrient dense. And also, you get to save a little bit of money. And depending on where you are, what you have available is different. But here, I feel like I don't think that I'm at the point where I could completely feed myself off, nature, but
Sure.
I would like to get there at some point. So this book is kind of a little quick and easy, and it's appropriate for beginners as well. Just a little quick and easy um, herbs that you can eat, herbs that you can bring into your house for health and for wellness. And also, there's a couple skincare recipes. But yeah, just normal cooking recipes to incorporate wild herbs or even cultivated herbs from your garden. And then there's a couple in there that are a little bit more survival ready herbs
Okay.
that can help you, in a situation if you need to find some survival foods or have wound care. Yeah, so it's just a little book that has pictures and kind of brief monographs of each herbs and a bunch of recipes. And I picked herbs that were abundant in most of the United States so that a lot of different people can access this information and kind of dip their toes in and realize that in their area, they probably have some herbs that they could go forage.
What are some of the herbs you highlight?
Yeah, so the herbs that are coming to mind is in this area. So again, they're fairly common in the United States, but I know they're definitely common in my area as well. So we have a ton of hawthorn berries in this
Mm.
area. They're just, in my opinion, they're fairly easy to identify. They are, depending on which variety you get, they can taste good. Sometimes they don't taste good, but they're nutritious. They're good for heart health. And I feel like in my area, they're very abundant and you can throw them into a lot of different recipes. I also added nettle, stinging nettle. Um, we've got Western red cedar is in there. That's definitely more common here,
Sure.
but nettles should be found in most places in the United States if you're looking. Hawthorn as well. Yeah.
You know what's interesting about that is I was hoping to find a bunch of hawthorn out here in Wisconsin. I haven't really seen it yet. I know it exists. Of course
Yeah.
it exists out here, but I just haven't seen it, and it's a bummer because my house in Oregon had a hawthorn tree right in the front yard, and I'd be able to harvest the berries all the time. And yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite plant allies, and I do find the berries to be rather delicious as well, especially when you make like an elixir out of it or something.
Yeah. There's some, I don't know if you've ever been up to Washington Park and they have
Oh
the
yeah.
sections. They've got a hawthorn section, which I'm not telling anyone to eat them because I don't know if you're allowed to,
Mhm.
but there's a couple varieties that are delicious. They're like sweet and juicy and really big and tastes almost like a peach strawberry.
Wow.
Though the average one that you'll find just anywhere usually is pretty bland. I think of them as like tiny little apples that you can eat.
Do you know the species on that? Is that the monogyna or something?
Honestly, I do kind of lump them together as
Yeah.
just Crataegus species because they're
Spa,
so
yeah.
interchangeable. So I don't
Right.
know the exact one.
Totally. Well, before the call started, you and I were talking about jewel weed. I don't know or think this is in the book per se, but if it is, let us know. But so being out here in Wisconsin, I see jewel weed all the time, and I was like, "What is this beautiful flower?" And it was so exciting for me. And then I saw you post about it on your Instagram. I was like, "Oh shit!" Somehow I missed it in Oregon. So could you just tell us a little bit about jewel weed?
Yes. So I also never noticed it in my area. I never thought about it. Really, it never was on my radar ever. And then there's this little greenway trail that I live by, and in the spring they are just extremely abundant, and they're very beautiful. So I was got curious about them, and I think I looked them up. Jewelweed, okay. And then I noticed it's kind of fun to to poke them when the seeds are ready because they spring out. So I just was having a little bit of fun looking at them, and the seeds sprout out, and then I read into them more, and they're pretty useful in that they can help if you, for example, get a stinging nettle sting or a bug bite or something. And I'm trying to remember, one of the first times I used it is because I had some type of irritation or sting or something like that. And then I noticed that they were just everywhere, and they come every spring and then they die back. You can also eat the little seeds. It's, you're not going to survive off of them, but they are edible, and they're actually kind of nice. They're nutty. So if you touch them, they spring out. So you kind of have to catch them as you go. So it's a fun activity, especially I think for kids, it would be a really fun, like foraging, harvesting activity. But yeah, I noticed that they're everywhere. So I was thinking potentially making some type of ointment or something to have on hand for irritations. But again, they're so abundant right now that if they were, up in the spring and I had some irritation, I'd just go there and apply them as needed.
I love that when like the remedy is growing right near the culprit, like the
They
poison
do,
oak or
yeah.
whatever.
In that area, they're both growing.
That's super cool. Yeah, fascinating. I didn't know the seeds were edible. I'll have to try that next time. I just saw it in flower. I want to say it was last summer, and they like water too, right? I want to say
Yeah,
the ones, yeah.
They're growing right up in this kind of flood zone area. And the seeds, by the way, they're edible, but if you peel back the skin, they're also really beautiful. They're this like bright teal color, but that might be when they're not ripe yet. So double check that.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, they'd be great to like sprinkle in a salad or maybe put in some bread or something like that.
All right, I'm gonna do that. Awesome. Well, let's transition again. You also have a skincare course. First of all, is this skincare course, is it evergreen, or do you like do one of those launch things where it's only open for a little bit?
So right now it's just evergreen. I just made
Okay.
it, I think last year, and I'm happy with all the information. So it's kind of just available for anyone who wants to dive in and learn holistic skincare. So that includes herbs, diet, some techniques, some just natural holistic techniques you can use for most of the common skin complaints. So we go over acne, skin aging, eczema, and stuff like that.
Why'd you create the course?
I think it's just, I think that's one of the subjects that I've talked to so many people about, and it can be really difficult for people who, are having their face skin flake off. And I've just had a lot of success with experimenting with herbal and holistic strategies. And so I feel like personally, I've seen so much success that I wanted to make that information accessible to a larger audience.
So if you get the course and then you go inside, is it like video classes? Are there PDFs? What does it look like inside?
Yeah, so there's a little bit, there's some videos. It kind of goes through all the chapters, and you can kind of hop around depending on, what issues you're dealing with. But there's kind of a basic, like how diet affects the skin and the detoxification pathways and all these things. But yeah, there's a couple of videos. There is a lot of written words, and then there's some documents that you can print out yourself or fill out to kind of experiment with things as an individual.
It's cool. So I went to the landing page before our call, and I read a quote, and I was hoping you could kind of talk about the philosophy behind it. So you say, "I've seen baby steps add up to meaningful progress, and I balance this with a philosophy of progress over perfection, so I can embrace presence along the way in this lifelong healing journey." And I just really love that because I'm very similar in the way I approach a lot of this health stuff. Is I start really small and I make it manageable, and then I just kind of add to it over time. And then I know that these little changes add to, exponential healing. So I was hoping you could just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think the underrated stuff is a lot more powerful than we give it credit for. I think if somebody's asking, I have a serious health problem, what do you suggest? And I suggest a tea, maybe I suggest chamomile tea or something. I think sometimes people want you to say something a lot more interesting
Right.
or extreme. Right. And in health in general, or especially with skincare as well, I think those kind of daily little little tweaks that you make to your lifestyle or little things that you add into your routines. For example, having a tea once a day, I think can, produce some really significant uh, benefits.
Sure.
And I think that there's a lot of, again, like flashy stuff in herbalism. For example, there's, the detox teas that you see that are really just laxatives, you know? So I don't think that personally, that's not my philosophy to just go like hard and fast. And with skincare and or just health in general, I see that a lot too. It's just like, oh, do this really extreme diet, do this, take this detox tea, and they don't tell you that they're just laxatives. So yeah, I was trying to encourage people to kind of instead realize what can you add in your daily routine, just the little things to kind of slowly but surely get to a better place over time.
I dealt with acne in my teenage years, which was totally horrible. And I noticed, yeah, once I changed up my diet and had different lifestyle habits, like eventually my skin really did improve a lot. Currently, I put, or for the longest time, I was putting olive oil on my skin quite a bit.
Yeah.
And not just my face, but all over my body. But these days, I've been using jojoba oil
Mhm.
on my like bald head and my face and everything. And I'm just kind of curious. I do that probably every day. And I'm just kind of curious, do you think that's overkill, or just kind of curious to take on oiling the skin and or jojoba oil?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
I like jojoba oil because it's the most similar to our natural skin
So
oil.
cool.
So it's, I think, the most universally like gentle one. Everyone's different. Personally, I can't put coconut oil on my skin, but some
Mm,
people, that's really great for them. And I think people need to take into consideration their personal what's the word, constitution, as well
sure.
as their environment. So I personally, my skin's very dry and my
Mm,
hair is really dry. Even though the Pacific Northwest is fairly humid, I'm still dry in general. So I can apply a lot of oil on my skin and my hair every single day. And I do. I put
okay.
oil on my skin and my hair like twice a day, every day.
Wow.
And part of, I do like jojoba as well for
Sure.
myself. Because even people with acne can usually use it without a problem.
Mm,
Um, but everyone's different. So again, some people olive oil is great. Some people coconut oil is great, but jojoba, for people that just want to dip their toes in, I think that's a good idea. And then, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it every day. I do think if you're adding too many like essential oils in, since
mm,
essential oils are antimicrobial, I think applying too many essential oils, even if it's diluted, in my opinion, is might throw off the microbiome of our body and our skin. But yeah, that's the only thing that I preface.
yeah. As opposed to essential oils, I suppose you could infuse just like, say, calendula flower into an oil, and that could be beneficial.
Exactly. That's actually what I've been doing too lately. In the winter,
Nice.
my skin is extra dry. So right now in the summer, I usually use less oil and lighter oils, but in the winter, I'm actually using an olive oil or a calendula infused olive oil on my skin.
Nice.
Yeah, highly recommend that because it's really healing to the skin.
Yeah, Amanda, she I want to say oils her hair maybe like once a week, but I think she probably has a kind of a similar hair constitution to you. It's curly and maybe on the tad dry side. So, but you're oiling your hair literally twice a day.
Well, usually like once a day. My skin is, I do,
Okay.
my face, I usually do twice a day in the winter. And then my hair is usually once a day, but it does what it wants to do. I
There you
haven't
go.
I still, it's different, even if I do the exact same thing, do it. So,
Totally. It's probably a lot drier here in winter in Wisconsin too than it is in the Pacific Northwest, but I
well,
would have
usually
to,
I would say so, but I think
yeah,
we've had some dry winters these last couple years. So,
totally.
yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. Where can folks learn more about the skincare course? Is that epicherbalism.com?
Yes, that's going to be on that website, and so they could just click there and find it.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, I think we got time to talk about herbs for relaxation. You were mentioning CBD. I want to say also CBG and CBN, if I'm getting that right. I know borderline nothing about cannabis other than I used to smoke it a lot in my youth. But can you tell us about your thoughts on CBD for relaxation?
Yes. So, in addition to some of my favorite relaxing herbs, like passion flower and skullcap, cannabis is, if you can believe it, a very popular herb.
Yeah.
And, and there are a couple more. recently appreciated cannabinoids that have been useful to people. So CBD, CBN, and CBG are all non-psychoactive cannabinoids. So if they're by themselves, they're not going to create any type of high, but they can be incorporated into, a combination with THC. CBD is probably the most popular one. Do watch out for people interested in it because there's so many random products on the market that who knows what's actually in them. It's not regulated federally. In Oregon, if you go to a dispensary, you actually can get a tested CBD product. That one, they're all kind of systemically anti-inflammatory, slightly relaxing. CBG is a little bit more specific towards nerve issues and also digestive inflammation. So some people find that it's helpful to kind of take internally for digestive situations. CBN is a little bit more sleepy, so it's usually used if you're trying to get some more sleep. But yeah, depending on where you are, what state you're in, you might be able to find a good quality CBD product. But that's an option for some people. And you could also, I've seen a couple products that mix herbs with the CBD. So yeah, it's just something else to look into. Yeah.
So when I was looking for different herbal options to help with, like mood and relaxation, I was like, you know what? It's been years since I've smoked cannabis, but I don't really want to get that head high because I remember later on when I was smoking weed, I would start having like extreme paranoia and stuff like that. I really didn't enjoy it. And it was funny because I was living in Oregon at the time, and there's like a pot shop on every street corner in Eugene and Springfield. But so I walked down the street and I bought some CBD, like a CBD joint, and I was like, sweet, this will be cool. Maybe I'll get some relaxing benefits. And I don't know if it was just like because my last experience with cannabis was a negative one. I was associating with that feeling regardless, and it became an unenjoyable experience to smoke the CBD joint because of my negative association with cannabis. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, or if there's any way around that, or if I'm just, screwed for the rest of my life not being able to try it. But yeah, if you have any thoughts on that.
So I actually have a lot of friends that partake in that herb, which by the way, I like to use it as an example because sometimes people kind of give me the impression that I don't believe herbs work. And so I say something like, oh yeah, so coffee, you don't use coffee
Right.
or tobacco, none of them really work.
Right.
So I know a lot of people who find a lot of relaxation and fun with the high THC cannabis. I'm not one of those people. I am kind of like you. I just kind of have an existential crisis, and it's not, back in the day, I would do more. And I think
Sure.
I've noticed that too, is as we get older, something kind of changes and we can't, hit the bong anymore. But yeah, so I kind of stayed away from it, and then I kind of experimented with some high CBD stuff. And I found personally, and I kind of talked to some people and found a pattern, not for everyone, but in general, the sativa ones are a little bit more active mentally. So for us that are already overthinking, it's not good. The indicas can tend to be a little bit more mellow. Sometimes they're sleepy, but a little bit more mellow. So I personally wouldn't partake unless it was like a high CBD indica. So yeah, everyone's different, and I'm really, really sensitive. So I wouldn't even go over like 5% THC. I could even do like 1% THC. So in Oregon, there's a lot of options. So yeah, for people that don't want to partake but want to experiment, maybe experiment with CBD. You could do a tincture and not smoke or anything. But if you want to smoke, there are some options that are really high CBD. And then I would suggest staying with the indica side for us overthinkers.
Good suggestions. Yeah, and you mentioned the Wild West and herbalism earlier. I remember when cannabis was illegal. That was the true Wild West because whenever you bought pot, you never knew what you were getting.
Yeah, it was a mystery, and then you'd have to like go run out, into the woods.
So I'm very thankful for it being legalized in most places. Still not legal here technically in Wisconsin, although there are shops I think that sell CBG type products, but still. Any other? Well, first of all, do you smoke like the joints? Is that how you consume these cannabis
No,
CBD?
actually, I like a tincture.
Oh, a tincture. Okay.
Yeah, so they make coconut tinctures. There's all kinds of different
Mm.
kinds. I like this one in particular that it's like trace amounts of THC, which it does. It's a little bit more, you know, effective and potent in my opinion when it's like a full plant extract rather than just CBD. Um, and yeah, I'll just take that sometimes, a little
Cool.
tincture, mostly CBD, tiny bit of THC. It's an indica, so that actually helps me with sleep. So it's
Mm.
kind of funny because I have valerian, but I prefer to take prefer
Sure.
to take the CBD tincture.
Do you sleep through the night?
Actually, I've always been an insomniac, so I've been
Yeah.
able to experiment with that a lot. And actually having a tiny bit of THC in there keeps you asleep a little bit better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Do you have any other favorite relaxing nervines?
I do. So I can grab it. I've got a
Yeah, you
formula.
can go grab it. Yeah.
Okay, so this is my go-to. I originally made it for myself, and then I do sell it now as well. It's
Nice.
called Chill, and it's a blend of different relaxing herbs. So I made it as a formula because I find that passion flower is best for immediate as needed. So if I'm stressed right now, I might do passion flower or kava.
Mm.
I personally find that skull cap isn't effective for me short term, but if I'm taking it consistently, it really helps slowly but surely kind of balance my nervous system. And ideally, I would take a tea because it does have some magnesium in there, which I think is probably part of how it's working.
Totally.
But yeah, so I do like a formula because it has some short acting ones, some long acting ones. So depending on what's going on in my life, I'll do this like every day, ideally, or as needed. I did it before the show just in case I got nervous.
Nice.
But yeah, some of my favorites for short term, I do like a passion flower. I think it tastes good. It makes an easy tea. I think it's very immediately relaxing. Um, Kava kava is one, and sometimes I'll chew it because I don't want to go through the whole making a tea process. And then ideally, I would. It's funny because when you give people advice, sometimes it's hard to take your own advice and be consistent. Um,
Right.
so ideally, I don't always do it, but ideally, I would be taking something like skullcap or milky oats regularly to help balance my nervous system because we just live in a really overstimulated society.
Absolutely. Did you say you put magnesium in the tincture?
I don't. It's the skull cap has magnesium in it.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if somebody wanted to use it, I would. It's a little bit more effort, but I think that making a tea out of it is probably the best way to go about it because you're also getting that nutrient with it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think there's a lot of the magnesium in the tincture, but it's still a good one.
For
You can,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I supplement with magnesium every day, and I find that to be very effective. So if folks want to buy Chill, the tincture blend, that's I saw you have an Etsy shop too. Is that mainly where you sell your tinctures? Is it also on your website?
On the website has a link to the Etsy shop. It's
Gotcha.
primarily Etsy right now. I'm thinking about potentially getting into the Amazon
Hmm.
area. And then I do also sell these products locally at a few different apothecaries in the Portland area.
Nice. You want to name them?
Um,
Is that the herb shop or?
Not the herb shop yet, and I'm in the process of trying to expand. So I'll
Okay.
maybe come back to you on
Sure.
that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome.
definitely at like two shops at the moment, maybe three pretty soon. Very
Very
slow,
cool.
sure, kind of expanding. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, very good. Sweet. Well, are there any plant allies that you've really been vibing with currently?
Ooh, let's see. One of my favorites has been St. John's wort
Hmm.
because it's just everywhere, and I also have an interesting story about it. So
Let's hear it.
it's um it's supposed to cause photosensitivity, right?
Hmm. I've heard
Supposedly.
that.
I think that's because they did an experiment where they gave cows extremely large amounts and they had bad sunburns, I think. But I think it's interesting because once late summer, I was taking it a lot, I think for mood, which it did help my mood kind of just balance out and kind of give me a little more of a peppy outlook.
Sure.
But I noticed, so I burn pretty easily. So I was worried about potentially burning more, but what's weird is I burnt less. So I have this like little just it's just me so far that's thinking this, I think. But I think that St. John's wort is actually photoprotective because when I was
Mm.
taking a lot, I didn't get sunburns when I usually do in late summer. And so I've been thinking about how, yeah, I think somehow it has this relationship with the sun, and I don't know how to explain it, but I think it's photoprotective, and I've considered looking into making some type of sunscreen with it. I'm not there yet. I just outsourced my sunscreen at this point, but just an interesting thought. So I've always, I don't know, I feel like I have a little special relationship with St. John's wort.
So that's Tanya's hot take. It's actually photoprotective. I like that. And
I mean, don't quote me on it.
sure, sure.
So, but for me,
Leave your
that was
opinions in the comments below.
trying out all the gingers out there. Give it a
Yeah.
try.
Yeah, so my friend Kyle Denton, he's an herbalist in Milwaukee. He calls it solstice wort because he says it blooms on the longest day of the year. So like you were mentioning the connection to the sun, which
Yeah,
I
and
really like that word.
say it one more time.
Oh, I just really like that name that Kyle calls it solstice wort.
Warrior. Oh, solstice
No,
warrior. I like.
solstice wort. Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I like
yeah.
that too. And when I was learning about the identification, you take a leaf and you hold it up to the sun, and you
Uh-huh.
see the little perforations, the sun shining through, and that's
Right.
how the metaphor about how it helps with usually depression is just let the sun shine through. So it does have
Mm.
this interesting relationship with the sun. And I feel like it's really accessible because it usually pops up kind of anywhere.
I take St. John's wort tincture every day based on the recommendation of a fellow herbalist, Kelsey Barrett. I was asking her about which herbs could help brighten my mood, so that was one of them. So that's definitely one of the plant allies I have currently as well. I also have a story about not getting sunburns. It's not related to St. John's wort. It's related to tomatoes actually. And this
Okay.
was before I really got into herbalism, but I was into nutrition. But I had heard lycopene, that's like the constituent in tomatoes, and like the red color, and apparently tomatoes get higher amounts of lycopene after it's cooked. And I remember hearing about that, and I have fair skin, and I would get sunburned every summer. And I remember I consumed massive amounts of tomato sauce that summer just as an experiment, and I did not burn that summer when I did that. Again, do your own research and do it at
Yeah.
your own risk, dear listener. But it was really interesting for me. I was like, holy shit, I didn't get sunburned, and I consumed a massive amount of tomato sauce. So
Maybe I'll experiment with that because I like to grow tomatoes, so maybe I'll experiment with that because I need some more, skin or sun protection. Also, I
absolutely.
think it's so interesting that have you noticed that I feel like um, plants have their own like tan or sun protection. I've noticed the plants that are in more direct sun, they have like that red or purple tint to them.
Mm,
But I've noticed that too, is that the plants will have some type of photoprotective property to them that I
I
think
like
maybe
that.
part with us. Um, yeah, and then St. John's wort, it's almost its own panacea. I also lately I've been for a few people, it's not uncommon for people to have like viral infections.
Hmm.
And it's just for anyone interested in St. John's wort, it does so many good things. Besides mood, it also is very antiviral. And it's also, I found, good for your skin because it supports the detoxification problem or process. So, anyways, I'm just throwing out more good stuff about St. John's wort because it's does everything.
And I like how you use the word supports. That means you have a product line or you're being careful. I love it. Not to continuously promote your products, but that's what we're here for, partially, as I guess. Do you sell the St. John's wort tincture?
I do. I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not in stock right now because I
Okay.
really like to do not all herbs, but St. John's wort's one that I really like to only do fresh. So I'll
Hmm.
do a seasonal batch once a year. I should try to make a bigger batch in the future so I can have it for the rest of the year.
Sure.
But so yes, I have it. I don't have it available right now. It'll probably be available again in the summer because I
Awesome.
used to do a fresh double strength extraction.
Cool. Awesome. Well, a couple more questions. Are there any like current resources or books or herbalists that are inspiring you right now?
Let's let me think. Every once in a while I see something from Rosemary Gladstar.
Mm.
She's just the sweetest person ever, and she usually reminds me to go back to the I don't know, more like non-physical relationship with the plants. And she even has her quotes on tea bag.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so I'm like seeing a lot of her, and I feel like she's reminding me to like get out of the house and like go on a little nature walk and say thank you to the plants. And then I have so many herb books. I do go back to this one kind of, I feel like a foundational herb book for me. So anybody getting into herbalism, I highly suggest checking out The Way of Herbs by Michael Tierra. He kind of outlines the paradigm about the traditional Western herbalism. So yeah, every once in a while I go back and I dip into that one as well.
I saw you post about that recently on Instagram, and actually, I interviewed Dr. Aviva Ram yesterday, world-renowned medical doctor and herbalist and author, and I was asking her, what some of the early books she read was, and she mentioned The Way of Herbs by Michael Tierra. So that book has stood the test of time.
It's a solid one. Yeah, I
Awesome.
wore out my copy. To get a new one.
That's awesome. Well, very good. This has been a lot of fun getting to know you more, Tania. Do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up and get out of here?
No, I appreciate you having me on, and I'm excited for the new year. It's a struggle. I wish I had more time to go to conferences and
Sure.
get-togethers and do local herb walks, but I'm definitely open to any local people who are maybe wanting to do herbal events, herb walks, like connect with me. Yeah, I've always, even though I'm doing a lot, I wouldn't mind doing, maybe a local herb garden or something like that. So yeah, definitely for, connections.
Lovely. Well, is there a way you'd like folks to reach out to you?
Well, you can go to epicherbalism.com. You can I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I'm also Mossy Tonic as well. So yeah, you can just reach out to me in those ways.
Sweet. Well, yeah, and there's no shortage of herbal community in the Portland area, so you're in a good place for sure for all of that. So, well, awesome. That was a lot of fun, Tania. Thanks for joining us on the Herbalist Hour.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah. All right. You too.
And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Herb Rally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at Herb Rally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from Herb Rally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.